They say mountains remember. They keep every sound ever whispered into their snow, every cry the wind dares not repeat. In the northern Urals, there is a place where the silence feels alive, and for decades it has held a single secret. What happened to 9 young hikers who walked into the white and never came back? It began with laughter. January 1959, 9 students from the Ural Polytechnic Institute packed their gear, strung their skis, and posed for photos. Their leader was Igor Dyatlov, just 23, disciplined, clever, the kind of man who fixed broken radios for fun and organized others with quiet confidence. They were bright, athletic, idealistic, children of the Soviet dream setting out to conquer the frozen wilderness. Their goal was Mount Otorten, a name that meant "don't go there" in the local Monsey language. The irony made them grin. They joked that if the weather turned rough, they'd rename it Mount Dyatlov instead. They had no idea that within weeks, the name would indeed be changed, but not for glory. The group boarded a train, then a truck, then trudged through snow that reached their knees. They sang folk songs at night, scribbled in their diaries, teased one another about who snored the loudest. One of them wrote, "The wind is strong, the snow is deep, but we are in good spirits." Those were among the last cheerful words they ever wrote. On January 31st, they reached the edge of a barren slope of Kholat Syakhl, the mountain of the dead. The wind there howled like a living thing. Yet Dyatlov decided to camp right on the exposed ridge rather than descend into the forest below. Perhaps he wanted to practice camping in harsh conditions. Perhaps they were simply too tired to move. Whatever the reason, their tent went up against the gale, anchored with skis and poles. Night fell. A storm rolled over the ridge. And from that moment, history went silent. For 21 days, no one heard from them. Families grew anxious. The institute sent telegrams, no reply. By mid-February, search parties were organized, students, soldiers, volunteers fanning out across the Urals. On February 26th, they found it. The tent, half buried in snow, flapping weakly in the wind like an empty lung. At first glance, it looked almost ordinary. Then they saw the cuts. Long, jagged slashes ran through the fabric, from the inside out. Inside lay the hikers' boots, coats, food, cameras, diaries, everything neat and untouched, as though they had stepped out for a moment and never returned. Outside, faint footprints led away into the white, bare feet, sock feet, some wearing only one shoe, marching downhill toward the trees. Rescuers followed the tracks for half a kilometer until the snow swallowed them. Beneath a tall cedar tree, they found the first 2 bodies. They were lying beside a small, charred patch of wood, as though they had tried to build a fire. Their hands were burned to the bone from clutching it. They wore only underwear. The branches above them were broken 4 meters high, as if someone had climbed frantically upward, trying to escape something or someone. A little farther upslope lay 3 more bodies. They were stretched in the snow, one after another, faces turned toward the tent as though crawling back to safety. These were Dyatlov himself, Rustam Slobodin, and Zina Kolmogorova. They had died mid-stride. The searchers whispered among themselves. How could people this experienced flee into the night half-dressed, without shoes, in -30 degrees? What could drive them to rip open their own tent and run? The last 4 were missing for 2 more months. Spring thaw revealed them in a ravine deeper in the forest, buried under meters of snow. When the rescuers uncovered them, they stopped speaking. One woman was missing her tongue. Another had no eyes. Yet there were no external wounds, no cuts, no animal marks. Their ribs were shattered from the inside out, as if hit by an invisible force. The official autopsies later described the damage as comparable to a car crash. By now, word of the tragedy had spread across the Soviet Union. The authorities sealed off the region. Military men took over. Reporters were told nothing. Families received sealed coffins and orders not to open them. Rumors spread like wildfire. Secret weapons tests, escaped prisoners, UFOs. And beneath all the speculation lay one truth. Something had terrified those 9 hikers beyond reason. Investigators returned to the campsite and took measurements. They found no signs of struggle, no footprints of strangers. The snow around the tent was strangely undisturbed. Yet their Geiger counters clicked. The hikers' clothing contained traces of radiation. One man's jacket even glowed faintly under ultraviolet light. Where had it come from? No one could say. Witnesses from a nearby village reported seeing bright orange spheres crossing the night sky around the time of the deaths. The military dismissed it as atmospheric tests. Others whispered of lights too silent, too fast, too smooth to be man-made. And then there was the sound. Some rescuers later said they felt an unnatural pressure in their ears on the ridge, a vibration too low to hear, but strong enough to make the stomach twist. Decades later, scientists would call this infrasound, a frequency produced by certain winds moving through mountain passes, capable of inducing anxiety, nausea, even terror. Was it enough to drive 9 rational people into panic? Or was it merely another convenient theory, another way to fill the silence? The official report closed with a single line. The cause of death, an unknown compelling force. No explanation, no closure. Just those words, heavy as stone. Families were told to stop asking questions. The past was sealed for years. The photographs and diaries that survived were quietly archived, their contents hauntingly mundane. Sketches of mountains, jokes about bad weather. A final picture showing the group laughing around their tent hours before they vanished. Even in death, they remained together, buried side by side in a frozen cemetery in Sverdlovsk. Their classmates built a monument shaped like a broken tent. The inscription reads, "In memory of those who died in the mountains." But the mountain itself, they say, never let go of them. For years, files lay locked behind red Soviet seals. Only fragments escaped, blurred photographs, contradictory testimonies, notes that trailed off mid-sentence. Every detail seemed to deepen the puzzle instead of solving it. The official investigators wrote that the hikers died between February 1st and 2nd, yet their watches had all stopped at different times. Some read 5:31 a.m., others 7:09. It was as if time itself had fractured on that mountain. Igor Dyatlov's camera contained one last frame, a blurred flash against darkness. Some saw the outline of a glowing orb, others said it was only a light leak. But the image, grainy and uncertain, became an icon of obsession, proof to some that the group had witnessed something not meant for human eyes. People who handled the case whispered of inconsistencies. Why had the soldiers who retrieved the bodies worn protective suits? Why did the documents list radioactive contamination but forbid questions about its source? And if an avalanche was to blame, why was the tent still standing, its poles upright, the slopes around it barely disturbed? One by one, the theories were born. The simplest claimed a slab avalanche, a hidden layer of snow suddenly giving way, collapsing part of the tent. Panicked, the hikers cut themselves free and fled downhill, unable to return once the storm swallowed their tracks. Yet the injuries did not match. Broken ribs, crushed skulls, and no snow weight heavy enough to cause them. Another theory told of military tests, secret parachute mines dropped by the Soviet army. Witnesses had seen glowing spheres in the sky, perhaps explosions of experimental ordnance. The blast could explain the internal injuries, the radiation, the missing soft tissue. But the official archives showed no operations that night, and no traces of metal were ever found. Then there were the stranger ones. Some blamed aliens, drawn by the glowing anomalies. Others spoke of the Mansi spirits, ancient guardians angered by trespass. Local hunters avoided the ridge long before 1959, claiming it whispered at night and made compasses spin. Skeptics rolled their eyes, but even the rational could not ignore the unease that clung to the place. The snow there felt different, heavy, soundless, as though muffling something beneath. In the 1960s, rumors turned the Dyatlov Pass into forbidden folklore. Journalists risked their jobs to print stories of the mountain of the dead. Families of the hikers received anonymous letters warning them to stop speaking. Some of the rescuers died young. Accidents, illness, or perhaps coincidence. But it fed the myth that whoever probed too deeply into the past invited misfortune. Years became decades. The Soviet Union fell. The case resurfaced with new investigators, new science, but the same cold riddle. In 2019 and 2020, Russian authorities reopened the file. Their conclusion again, an avalanche. They cited computer models showing how a small snow slab, loosened by wind and gradient, could strike the tent and send the group fleeing into lethal cold. The world wanted to believe it, but the old unease returned. Photographs showed no debris, no obvious slide path. If an avalanche had crushed them, why were some bodies 400 meters away, deep in a ravine, their skulls split as if by blunt trauma? And why the radiation? Why the silence of the witnesses who might have known more? Perhaps the truth is simpler and far darker. Imagine the wind screaming through that pass, its pitch low enough to rattle the bones. The snow shifts under the tent, its canvas creaking. Someone wakes, hears a groan, a pulse of vibration, feels the slope tremble. Fear spreads like fire in the dark. Someone shouts, cuts the tent. They stumble into the storm half-dressed, certain the mountain is collapsing around them. In minutes, panic becomes death. They lose each other in white oblivion. Some crawl toward the trees. Some fall. Some freeze where they stand. And when the wind stops, the mountain keeps their last breaths, sealing them beneath snow and silence. That is one version, the rational one. But it explains only how they died, not what they felt. The photographs, the diaries, the faces caught laughing hours before, they linger because they make the ending unbearable. 9 young lives, bright with hope, erased by something invisible. Today, hikers still visit the site. They leave flowers, coins, bits of cloth in the snow. Some report hearing faint voices carried on the wind. Others claim to see distant lights hovering just beyond the ridge. Every winter, when the sky burns green with aurora, people say the pass glows faintly, as if remembering. The mountain has a new name now, Dyatlov Pass. It is a monument carved by fear and frost. Scientists call it a case study in tragedy. Storytellers call it a haunting. The locals simply say the mountain screamed once and has been whispering ever since. More than 60 years have passed, but no one truly sleeps easy there. The tent, the footprints, the broken bodies, all of it remains suspended in the cold, replaying beneath layers of ice. Maybe one day the snow will melt enough to tell the full truth. Or maybe the truth is that nature itself is not cruel, merely indifferent, and that our minds fill its indifference with monsters. Still, when the wind rises over the Urals, travelers sometimes stop and listen. The sound comes low, almost human. Some swear it's only the storm. Others say it's Igor Dyatlov calling his friends home. And so the story endures, half history, half nightmare. 9 souls lost to the mountain, 9 shadows moving forever through the white. No motive, no witness, only questions echoing through frozen time. The Dyatlov Pass remains silent, and perhaps that silence is the answer. Some mysteries are not meant to be solved. They are meant to be remembered. And that is the mystery of the Dyatlov Pass. 9 hikers, 9 stories, and a silence that refuses to fade. More than 60 years later, the snow still hides its secrets, and maybe that's how the mountain wants it. If this story kept you awake tonight, remember, some truths aren't lost. They're just waiting for the right moment to be found. If you dare to uncover more tales of mystery, fear, and the unexplained, subscribe and join me next time when the shadows whisper again.